All right, this is 8C practice. Thanks for watching. All right, so we have, gotta get like denominators. I have 5n squared, n squared, n squared. All three have n squared. We need to multiply by something as, we need to multiply by something that's equivalent, or we have to have the denominator equal to 5n squared. So we need to multiply first, or second and third fraction by 5 over 5. That's equivalent to 1. So at this point, we have n plus 6 over 5n squared equals 1 times 5 is 5 over 5n squared plus, I'm not going to multiply it in yet. I'm not going to multiply it into the binomial n plus 3, the 5. I could multiply that in right now if you'd like. Looking at our numerators, we have n plus 6 equals 5 plus 5. So I can drop the denominator because we have like denominators. Now I want to distribute in this 5, so I'm going to write everything else quickly. Real easy to write everything, all the other parts, the terms. I just like to write one thing at a time, one thing to help simplify things. Now we have to get like terms together. When it comes to variables, I try to always keep the coefficients positive, so it's a positive 1n. If I subtract 1n or just n, I get 4n, so 5n minus 1n is 4n. And 4n is positive, I want to move everything away. So I have 6 equals, 5 plus 15 is 20. Let's do that. That looks good. Let's subtract 20. Get negative 14 equals 4n. Divide by 4. N equals, and you can simplify numerator, divide by 2, divide by denominator, reduce that fraction down to 7, negative 7 over 2. Number 2, looks like the denominators, we just need to multiply by 5 over 5 on the first fraction. That gives us 5b. At this point, we can look at our numerator. We have 1 times 5 is 5, plus 4b plus 16 equals 6. You can put the 4b plus 16 in parentheses if you'd like. Parentheses are not needed in this case because we have an addition to the left. So there's nothing really too simple or distribute in. And now we have 5 plus 16 is 21. Subtract 21. We have 4b equals negative 15 divided by 4. You get b equals negative 15 over 4. Number 3, we have 2r, and multiply the last term by 2 over 2. That'll give us 2r. R times 2 is 2r. Let's look at our numerators. We have 1 plus r minus 7 equals 1 times 2 is 2. One minus 7 is negative 6. R is going to equal 8. Next denominator, or next problem, number 4. Factoring the denominators. This is where we really got to think about this. P plus 3, nope, nothing to factor there, no greatest common factor. P squared minus 2p minus 15, yes. A is 1 in that quadratic, the leading term. So we do what two numbers multiply to C that add up to B, and that is going to be, when A is 1, we can do a quick shortcut, negative 5 and positive 3. Looking at our denominators, we have p plus 3, no p plus 3 in our last denominator, so we need to multiply by p plus 3. The numerator also needs to be multiplied by p plus 3, so then what we're multiplying by is equivalent to 1, so we're not changing the value of the problem. But now we have a p plus 3 in every denominator. Looking at our next, we have a p minus 5, We don't have a p minus 5 in our first. So we need to multiply by p minus 5. Multiply numerator and denominator by p minus 5. All right, so if we can make some sense of what's going on here, let's look at our numerator. We have p minus 5 times 8 plus 4p plus 8 equals 8 times p plus 3. So 8 times p minus 5, commutative property of multiplication, I switch those around. 4p plus 8, you're more than welcome to put that in parentheses, but we have a plus, we're adding 4p plus 8, so distributing the plus doesn't really make sense. 8 times p plus 3. All right, to solve this equation, we need to distribute to get rid of the parentheses. Distribute. We get like terms. I try to get like terms together on the same side. And then we have like terms on opposite sides. I look at the 12p and 8p. 12 is bigger. That'll help keep the variable, the coefficient, the term with the variable, positive. I'm going to add 32 while I'm at it. 32 and 24 are like terms, and that is 56. Divide by 4, and we get p is going to equal 14. Number 5, no denominators to multiply or factor. We can get 8r squared. You multiply by r divided by r. Looking at our numerator, we have, let me highlight this, r squared plus 11, r plus 24 minus 8, or r times r minus 3 equals 8. I'm going to probably manipulate some things, move some things around. So our first numerator we can keep the same. I'm going to subtract, I'm going to put the r over in front of the r minus 3. And that equals 8 times 1 is 8. We need to distribute this negative r to get rid of the parentheses. No equals. Negative r squared plus 3r equals 8. And looks like we have a quadratic, but when you have 1r squared and you subtract 1r squared, those are opposites, so they will eliminate opposite like terms. So we have 11r plus 24 plus 3r equals 8. 11r plus 3r is 14r plus 24 equals 8. Divide by 14. Negative 16 over 14 can be reduced to negative 8 over 7. Number 6. Doesn't look like we have a denominator on 6, but we do. It's 1. And what would be a common denominator? K squared. So our denominator is k squared. We have 1 plus 6k squared equals 7. And I'm moving everything away from the k squared because I only see one term with the k. I didn't talk about this before I started, but there's only one term with a variable. Anytime you have that, you can solve for that variable. I should say when it's quadratic. When it's cubic, you're probably going to have to do some factoring prior to. Well, with the quadratic, you can square root, and that's positive and negative 1. And the last two problems. Factor the denominator. We have x times x plus 4. Looking at all of our denominators, they're all factored now. And looks like we need to multiply by an x. So multiply by x over x and multiply by x over x. Something is equivalent to 1. Now all of our denominators are the same. They all have x's, and x plus 4 is as factors. Let's look at our numerators. I'm actually going to take this x and move it over to the other side. And I would do the same with this x, but the 2 is a monomial, so I don't have to do any kind of distributing. So we have 5x minus 25. Just looking at the numerators. 2 times x is 2x. Gathering some like terms. Negative 7x plus 2x is negative 5x. I see a quadratic, so I'm going to want to get everything to one term, and I see more than one variable in terms, so, or term has more than one variable, or more than one term that has a variable, I should say. My goodness. So I have x squared minus 10x plus 25, and it is quadratic. A is 1. Do what two numbers multiply to c that add up to b, and that's negative 5 and negative 5. Set each term or each factor equal to 0. They happen to be exactly the same. So when you solve one, you actually solve both. X is going to equal 5. Since the other x minus 5 equals 0 is going to x equals 5. This just means we have one unique solution. If you want to put that we have a multiple of 2, meaning there's 2 of them, you're more than welcome. And the last problem, number 8. We have 1 over 1 as a denominator of our last term. Each denominator, looking at k minus 3, nothing to factor there. K minus 3, nothing to factor there. They're both linear binomials. The last denominator we're going to need to have multiplied by k minus 3. Now we have all like terms. 1 times k minus 3 is k minus 3. Let's look at our numerator. We have k squared minus 12k plus 32 plus 1 equals 1 times k minus 3 is just k minus 3. All right, we have a quadratic. We need to look at that. We have a quadratic. So then I have more than one term with a k, so I'm going to have to move all the terms to one side. So minus k. And I'm subtracting k because the leading term, the biggest exponent, the term with the biggest exponent is positive. I want to keep it positive. Much easier to work with and solve if the k, in this case the quadratic term, is positive. Negative 12k minus 1 more k is negative 13k. 32 plus 1 is 33, plus 3 is 36. These will simplify to 0. Fortunate we have the a is 1, so we have what two numbers multiply to c that add up to b. So that's 9 and 4. Negative 9 and negative 4. Set each factor equal to 0 and solve. So you have 9. K is going to equal 9. And K is going to equal 4. And there are your answers. Thanks.